Welcome to the Construction Disruption Podcast, where we uncover the future of design, building, and remodeling.
I'm Todd Miller of Isaiah Industries, manufacturer of specialty metal roofing and other building materials. Today, my co-host is Ryan Bell. Ryan, how are you today?
Todd, I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing well also. So I've been thinking back. We had an interesting discussion back in episode 89 that you and I co-hosted. And I understand you've got an update. You want to kind of fill us in on that?
I do, Todd. And actually, I've been meaning to provide an update on this for a while, but it kept slipping my mind. So in that episode, if you go back and listen, Todd was talking about a product that he had found that was amazing, and it was called Urea Cream. And it's an incredible foot cream, basically. And just through bringing it up and talking about it, I mentioned my wife has horrible issues with her feet being cracked on the heels, like to where it's painful. So I bought some for her to try. And I just wanted to report back that it works, Todd, just like you said it did. She was a little skeptical at first and weirded out by the name of it.
Imagine that.
And she really she used it for a little bit. She goes, it's no different than any of the other lotions I've tried. Well, the little container's about gone now, and her mind is blown, and she's like, I can't believe how well this works. So Thank you for the recommendation, despite the weird name.
Despite the weird name, yeah, I still haven't checked out the ingredients. I'm not sure I want to.
I have. So it's a synthetic of urine, basically.
It is
compounded, yes. Which is why, but it's synthetic. And she said she looked it up. I looked it up initially. I'm like, it's just some sort of synthetic. I don't know why they called it that. And I kind of left it at that. Well, she looked it up recently, and she goes, yeah, it is like a synthetic urine, basically. So there you go.
How can you even make synthetic urine? That just
I don't know.
A weird concept.
It's very weird to me, yes, but it works. So,
well, good. I'm glad that Andrus's feet are doing better. That's cool.
Yes, so is she.
I quit using it for a while, and yeah, it definitely. So then I started using again. It definitely made a difference, no doubt about it. Just my feet just feel all comfy all day. It's just kind of crazy. Anyway, so as a reminder to our audience, we are once again in this episode doing our challenge words, where each Ryan and I and also our guests have been given a special word that we are challenged to work into the conversation as seamlessly as possible. So you, the audience, can be listening, see if you can pick up on what our challenge words are. And at the end of the show, we will reveal our success or lack thereof. So Ryan, you good to go?
I'm ready. Let's get started.
Great. So a few weeks back, I was really blessed to meet this guy and to be on his podcast called the Successful Life Podcast. It was a lot of fun, but I got to say the real highlight for me was getting to meet the show host, Mr. Corey Berrier. Corey is one of those guys that you can just tell he has had a lot of life experience, and he can talk thoughtfully and knowledgeably just about any topic you put in front of him. So today we really are fortunate and blessed to have Corey as our spotlighted guest. To tell you a bit more about Corey, in addition to having a great podcast, again, the Successful Life Podcast, and we'll put all this information in the show notes. Corey is self-employed as a business coach to the home services industry. Working with a variety of clients, he has the pulse of some of the most cutting-edge things out there today, including AI and other technology, and also something we have talked about before here on the show called NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming. So, Corey, welcome to Construction Disruption.
Thanks, Todd. Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate that.
Well, like I said, I know that you can talk about pretty much anything because that's kind of what you and I did when I was on your show. And had a great conversation. To kind of get us started, though, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Maybe in particular, maybe if you've had any key life experiences that have made you who you are today.
For sure. So, yes, I specialize in sales for the home services. I work with technicians. I work with business owners. to increase their revenue. That's what I do for my day-to-day job. But life experiences that have shaped me, I guess we'll go straight into it. I'm a recovering alcoholic, and I haven't had a drink for 14 years, a little over 14 years. Haven't been totally sober that whole time, but I haven't had a drink in over 14 years. And so I bring that up because it really has shaped my life in many different ways. Before I got sober, before I stopped drinking, my life was a total train wreck. In the middle of this 14-year period, my life became a train wreck again, even though I wasn't drinking.
Yeah.
And so there's been a lot of ups and downs, but I believe that, when things get hard, I have experiences to reflect back on that it's really just not that bad, because I've been through quite a bit of bad things. So, hopefully that answered your question.
Well, I think that's kind of cool, actually, because, you can, as you work with folks and coach them, and, one of the things, anyone who's been in business very long at all knows that you got ups and downs. It's not always roses and daisies when you're in business. And yet I think a lot of times, when you are in those down areas, people have a tough time kind of seeing their way out of it, figuring out, can I get through this? And then the other thing is sometimes you look back and you don't really know what you learned for it. So I'm kind of curious, what are your thoughts generally on the setbacks that we go through, whether that's in life, personal, or whether it's in business? What are your thoughts on those setbacks? How do you get turned around? How do you later use that as something you look back on and maybe pull some power from?
Well, I think there's two answers to that. I think some setbacks for some people cause them to have a victim mentality, and sometimes people don't get out of that. I'm not one of those people. I'm a fighter. I get up whenever I get knocked down, and I'm not a bionic person by any stretch. Like, things still affect me, of course, but I feel like if you said to me, Corey, I've been in business for 25 years and I've never had a failure, I would find that I would probably not believe that. Right. I feel like if you haven't had failures in life, you're probably not doing something right. At the same time, you've got to learn from those setbacks or failures. And if you don't learn, well, I don't really know what happens, because I do learn from my mistakes, because I don't want to make them again.
Well, I think that's interesting there again, because, when you do have a failure, I think it gives you a lot of times the resiliency to make it through the next situation. And, if you've never experienced that failure, I kind of think about, some of the theories on parenting. And, when my son was growing up, everyone was saying, you got to let him fail, and, you got to, and I think we did that. I'm not sure we did as much as we could have. But as a young adult, he's proven to be incredibly resilient. So I think that's good. I'm kind of curious, in the coaching you do with business owners, what are some of the things that you personally most enjoy helping people with?
I work with people in the home services industry because ultimately contractors are just like me. I don't know how to turn a wrench and I don't swing a hammer, but I understand what they go through as far as being unorganized, having ADHD, not just despising email. Like, I fit the mold. I should have been a contractor. And so what I like working with, several reasons why I like working with contractors, because I can see the struggle clear as day, because I've been there. I've struggled with the same stuff. I've had, to your previous question, I've had setbacks both in personal life and in business. I haven't had a perfect track record. I've made a lot of mistakes. And so I draw on those experiences to help other people.
Very interesting. And I love that. And, I think that is what a good coach does. As you work with your clients, are there any just things that you find that, gosh, if I can just tweak their attitude this little bit, that's going to make a significant impact in terms of their outlook, their performance, their success, productivity. Are there any of those things like that that you have picked up on that you see common amongst business owners? And gosh, if I can just tweak this a tiny bit.
So I'm gonna give you two perspectives. When you're the business owner, there's a couple of things depending on where they're at in business. There lots of times they depend on, let's just call it their service technician. Service manager to handle a lot of the day-to-day stuff. That service manager was probably his best salesperson. They get moved up into the service manager position and ultimately really doesn't need to be in that position. And one of the gaps that I see is that they do depend on these people to run the business, and sometimes they step away and turn a blind eye to what's going on, or they get so intertwined with that service manager that they believe whatever the service manager is saying, regardless if the rest of the company's burning down. And so those are hard conversations. But that's one of the biggest gaps that I see, when working with the people that I work with, to be honest with you.
Very interesting. Well, I know one of the things I picked up on real quick as I started, getting to know you and talking to you is that you are way ahead of the curve beyond most of us in terms of using and understanding AI and other technology in your life. I'm kind of curious, what do you enjoy about that? And how do you find that it helps you in your business dealings? And how do you make the choices as far as, okay, that's something I want to pursue, and that's something I don't need to bother with right now?
So AI, look, I missed the .com boom. I was probably drinking or partying or who knows what. But I missed that. I missed the social media boom whenever that happened. And what I recognized when AI came kind of to mainstream is that this is an opportunity kind of like when the internet came about. I mean, we're in a time right now that either one of two things is going to happen. Either you're going to get on board or you're going to be left way behind. And look, this is not a knock on our industry as a home services industry, but we all know technology wise, we're not up to date. We're just not. There's a lot of, things that, look, people are still using paper, which sounds crazy, but there are contractors that still use pen and paper to keep, to do their books.
Sure.
And so I think this is an opportunity if people can just wrap their head around something new. It could take a business that's got a lot of problems and really streamline so many things that we hate doing. Email, social media posts, and I'm just giving you like really low level stuff here. It's endless. The possibilities are endless.
Do you ever get overwhelmed by the AI world and how fast it's evolving and all the tools that are coming out with it? Or because it is something I felt the same way, like you kind of missed the .com, the social media, and I thought the same thing. This is kind of the next big thing. I'm going to dive into it and learn about it and how to best utilize it. And then I was so overwhelmed, I just kind of had to step back from it because there's so much coming out so quick. Has that been your experience too, or?
It has been. It is very overwhelming. It's kind of like, imagine a pinball machine that has 3 balls going at once. Inside of it, dinging on all the things. That's kind of how I feel with all the new stuff that's coming out. It's all exciting. It's all a huge distraction, or can be if you don't tamp it down. I found myself sitting in front of this computer for hours and just not being able to move because it's a lot. And so what I've had to do is figure out how I can utilize AI for the people that I work with. And we have figured out a pretty significant way to do that. And I'll get into that probably a little bit later on.
In trying to sort through all this, so where do you go to for your information? What are some of the sources that you use and rely upon to help you try to keep up with technology and everything that's going on today?
So there are some, I don't know, I guess for the lack of better terms, influencers that, that are pretty, you can do the math, you can do the homework on them. I had one of the guys on my podcast, to be honest with you. And I trust what he says because I've tried the things that he says and they work. And so I interviewed this guy, and I'll try to make this short. He opened up a private group, and I joined the private group because there's a bunch of techie, AI, people in the group that are doing, bot building and all kinds of crazy stuff. And so I met a guy that I'm drawing a blank on the consulting firm. I'll remember it in a second. It's one of the largest consulting firms in the world. Both of you know exactly who it is, but it's escaping me. And so I've partnered with him. He's an engineer, which is great because I know a lot about the tools that you can use for AI. I know a lot. In fact, we built an MVP, minimal viable product for call centers that would track the call as it was going, and it would tell you with like an emoji smiley face or sideways face or sad face how that call was going. Because we all know that, if you're on an HVAC company, you probably record the phone calls, but nobody ever listens to them. And it seems like a pot of gold for a home services company because you've got your CSR that could be messing up on the script. You've got the customer that could be upset. So anyway, long story short, I'm a sales guy, not a software guy. So we got to the minimal viable product, which is like the back end of this product. And then I realized I'm not a software guy. I don't know how to take this thing any further than this. And so I worked really hard on it to get it to where it was, but ultimately it's just kind of we've shelved it. But I say all that to say it has educated me learning this stuff and how to go about putting people in place that do know how to do it, like this engineer. And so I know a lot about AI, but I don't know how to necessarily implement AI, right? Some of the stuff I do, but not stuff that's going to really, really move the needle. Does that make sense?
Sure does. Absolutely. Well, so I'm going to jump into a question that I don't know. Are there any new significant frontiers you see on the horizon in terms of tech and the home services industry?
We have just finished our end-to-end process. All right, so let me explain this. So if you run an ad for a roofing company, we're doing this for roofing actually. So if a roofing company runs an ad and you, the customer, click on the ad, you're going to get a pop-up form, or it's going to take you usually to a pop-up form, a lead form. And so we've built a process to where when that customer clicks on the ad, it pre-fills the information as much as it can from Facebook. Usually the address is not in there, but you have to put your own address in. And once you check the box and hit submit, within 20 seconds, you're going to have minimally 3 estimates for your roof.
Wow.
Sometimes 5. It's absolutely insane. And I'm excited because I could have never built that. It was just my idea. And then partnering with his engineer, he's built it. And so,
20 seconds.
20 seconds.
Wow.
And here's the crazy part. Pennies on the dollar.
Wow. That is fascinating.
I wish I could show you. It's unreal. It's really, really unreal. And so I believe this is going to change the industry as far as how people are getting estimates, because, and I'm not going to throw out names here, but we all know the major players in the game, and some of them are, $10 or $15 an estimate. Some of them are $50 or $60 an estimate, but none of them can produce it in 20 seconds.
Yeah, as I think about that, I mean, you think about that, the impact on the contractor, the home services provider, but really the big impact is on the consumer. I mean,
That's
that,
right.
and whereas in the past, most of the tech that we see our industry grabbing hold of is to benefit the contractor, not the consumer. And what you're talking about there, I see benefiting the consumer. That's great.
Well, I would argue that it benefits both because
Oh, I agree. I agree.
well, one part that I left out is that it sends you a personalized email with all three estimates in the email to you personally. At the end of that 20 seconds, you have a totally customized email to you from the contractor, right? If it's ABC Roofing Company, it's going to say this is from Todd at ABC Roofing Company.
Wow, that is awesome. Well, again, we'll want to make sure we get that information in the show notes for folks too, so they can learn more and dig into it. Exciting stuff. I think it's really interesting how you have gone from this, being a coach and yet grabbing hold of tech and really working to bring that to your clients and to the world, and that's pretty cool. So I want to flip gears a little bit, and we have talked about this on the show, gosh, at least 3 times before over the last couple of years, and that is NLP, neuro linguistic programming. Kind of curious, and I realize you're an expert in that area. How does your knowledge of NLP and your ability to use that as part of your processing, how does that impact your everyday communication with others?
So I'm not naturally an empathetic person. I don't naturally empathize with people.
Mm-hmm.
But through the work that I've done with NLP, first off, it's kind of unnaturally. It's not like I think about using NLP, but I've been using it for so long that I use it in a bunch of different ways. But empathy is one of those things that I think in 2023 is something that a lot of people lack. And it's one of the things that I think I do fairly well at this point is, to be empathetic. And plus it helps me, I ask a lot of questions, and I do use NLP when I ask questions, and in sales, that really helps. So that's where I use it primarily, to be honest.
Interesting. Is that something that you are very purposeful in talking to your clients about and helping to give them some ideas on how to be a better listener, how to be a better responder, how to think about how you craft those responses? Is that a conversation you have with clients?
A conversation with clients?
Yeah, just training them and teaching them and trying to help them get better at it themselves.
So I just did that on purpose. I mirrored what you said because that's an NLP thing, right? So it is so effective because, and it's funny because when I tell people about this, they're like, yeah, they're going to know. They're going to know that I'm repeating their words. Well, they'll know if you're weird about it. But if you just do it conversationally, right? I mean, my question back to you didn't really make a whole lot of sense, but
no, it
naturally,
didn't. But okay, I'm going to be nice to him.
Sure, right? I mean, and you happily told me a broader description of what you wanted. The customer will do the exact same thing.
Sure.
So, and you mentioned listing, active listing. It's so important to be able to not talk over people and to be able to sit there and just really genuinely listen to what someone's saying and then respond. Nothing makes someone feel, I shouldn't say nothing, but it makes people feel less than when, if you know the rest of my sentence, lots of times people like to jump in and just finish the sentence, but it's rude. I'm sure I do that to my wife all the time. I try to practice my NLP and not do that, but it's something that I have had to work on tremendously. I can tell you that.
Very interesting. Well, and I think a natural inclination of so many salespeople is, what I call verbal diarrhea, or they just go in and they just start puking words all over the place, talking about themselves and how great they are. And, they're not taking time to listen to the client. And I think that's probably the number one challenge. A lot of young salespeople fall into that trap because they think, well, I'm the salesperson. I got to sit here and talk. Yeah, you really got to listen more than you talk. So, kind of switching gears here a little bit again, Corey, what do you love about what you do?
I really, I really love people. I don't love everybody, but I do love working with people on their communication. I love seeing the light bulb come on when there's a win. I like being there when that happens. Um, I enjoy seeing other people win. And I don't
Yeah.
mean I need to take the credit for it, because that's 100% not what I mean. And maybe it's a little bit of ego. Maybe I just like knowing that I was a part of the winning strategy. Right? Maybe.
That's okay. But it's fun to see people win. I agree. A lot of people get stressed out over that, and they think it all has to be competition. I was watching a baseball game the other night. I kind of get into the Cincinnati Reds every summer, ever since I was a kid. But anyway, gosh, they were playing the Tigers, and the Tigers have a player, Carrera or something, and he and Votto are both pushing 40 and close to retirement, and Carrera got on first base. Votto was playing first base, and Votto intentionally gave him a hug, just saying, "Hey, here we are, guy," and gave him a hug. And there were people just trouncing Votto on social media, saying, "How can you do that? They're the enemy during that game," and a bunch of baloney. We're all humans. But anyway, fun stuff. So, speaking of baseball, I know that you're a big fan of physical fitness. What benefits do you find in that for your work and your family life?
Well, a little bit of backstory. I'm from Mount Airy, Mayberry, the armpit of North Carolina.
The actual Mayberry, right?
The actual Mayberry. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. Mayberry RFD.
That's right. And so growing up in Mayberry, there wasn't a whole lot to do. So I was a pretty overweight kid. And I got made fun of at the pool after my 6th grade year. It embarrassed the daylights out of me. And so I have not been overweight since then. And so the benefits that I get, I guess, is that I can look myself in the mirror and say, I'm doing the right thing. Sometimes it's a little bit extreme, some of the stuff that I do. But at the end of the day, it gives me confidence.
Well, it has to have to do something for your energy level and things like that, too. And you're obviously a high energy guy.
Well, I also used to be a trainer. So, it's kind of ingrained in my blood to work out every day. It's like it's a really good habit to have. And it's just something that every day I'm going to go do that one way or the other.
That's cool. I need to take that to heart. So you've been hosting the Successful Life podcast for 4 years now, I think?
4 years.
A little while.
Yeah.
You've made some significant strides. I think you announced recently you're in the top 3% of all podcasts, or some pretty impressive number.
2.5% now.
Wow.
Yep.
So what do you find that you're accomplishing through the show? I mean, what do you think are the goals and some of the things that you're making happen through that?
A lot of the show, I don't know if this is the answer you're really looking for, but a lot of the show, when it started out, and even up until maybe a year ago, was an ego play. I just really thought everybody needed to hear what I had to say.
Okay.
I mean, that sounds ridiculous, but I can contribute my most recent success to not being the only person talking on the show and bringing people on like you and letting you talk and tell your experiences, because the show's not really about me. The show's about the people that I bring on and giving value to the people that are listening. And so it took me a little while to realize that. But that's the answer. That's the truth.
Interesting. Well, I think people are benefiting from hearing what you have to say, but I appreciate your answer just the same.
Appreciate that.
Well, what advice do you have? We do think a lot of our audience here on our show is younger folks, new to their careers in design or construction or remodeling. What advice do you have to folks new to this industry?
I'll tell you, one, we don't have enough people coming into the industry. That's the first thing. So if you're young and you're thinking about getting into this industry, this is just my opinion, but I believe that people in the trades are going to be looked at as like we usually look at doctors, because there's going to be so few people in the trades that there are not going to be enough to go around. And guess what that does? Prices go up if you need to hire a plumber, if there's very few plumbers. So I think it's a time right now. This is the best industry you can get into, because with AI, with all the things that are changing, a service technician or a roofer, it's going to be kind of hard to replace a human being doing those jobs. Now, I'm not saying that it can't be done. I don't know. Maybe it could be, but it's going to be a lot easier replacing somebody that does copywriting, which you could replace that person now, than it will be somebody that goes to your house, shakes the customer's hand, talks with the customer, builds rapport. You can't really do that with a robot, at least not yet anyway. And I don't really see that happening anytime soon. So I think there's an advantage. If you're younger, I think this is a time when you can get into any of the home services and really, really make a fortune. That's what I think.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And, as I think about the exposure I've had to home services, say in Europe or Asia or Australia, very different. Again, the trades are up here in thought and respect. And I think we've kind of been one of our own worst enemies here in the United States in terms we've always pushed everything towards sort of lower cost disposable products. And yet in Europe, they don't have that mentality. Everything is about higher end quality, what's going to last the longest. And so we've kind of been our own worst enemy and driven the industry down. But I think that has to change. So I'm right there with you. Good stuff.
I also think with AI that a lot of stuff can be automated. And so I think it's a time that if you are young and you're getting into the trades, you need to look into AI, because it could save you from having to hire a lot of people. Like I mentioned, content creation, just something as simple as that. I don't enjoy putting out content on Facebook. It's not something that I wake up and say every day, this is what I want to do. Right. So you can automate that stuff. Now, is it going to be as genuine as me writing it out? Maybe not, but it's going to be pretty close. And if you're new in business and you're sending out a bunch of customer emails, well, it'll work for that. And it'll save you a ton of time and a ton of headache. So I think it's a great time for people to get in the trades.
And all that AI stuff is going to be going through 100 algorithms to figure out what's going to perform the best also. And we can't do that in our own heads so well. Well, Corey, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. We really are close to the end of what we call the business end of things. Anything we haven't covered today that you'd like to share with our audience?
So I have written a couple of books, and I thought I'd mention at least one of them, which is 9 Simple Steps to Sell More Shit. I have it right here.
Got it right there. Awesome.
Yep. So I wrote this book, and you'll know, and for anybody that goes to buy the book, I don't make any money on the book. But what the book does is it tells you, some of the struggles that I've gone through, and it starts out with confidence. And I mentioned that earlier. And it's a little bit different. It's a kind of a different sales book. It gives you more of those soft skills, which I thrive in talking about. Anyway, so I thought I'd mention that.
Love it. 9 simple steps to sell more shit. First time I've said shit on this show, I got to say, I think. Anyway, well, this has been great. So before we do close out, I have to ask you if you are willing to participate in something we call our rapid fire questions. So these are 7 questions. Corey has no idea what we're going to ask him. All we do is ask him to give him his quick response. Some are serious, some are silly. Are you willing to participate in rapid fire?
I am.
Cool. Well, we can alternate asking. Ryan, you want to ask the first one?
I would love to. Question number 1. Can you think of a product or service that you have purchased recently that was a game changer for you? Something that kind of made you say, where have you been all of my life?
Yes. There's multiple AI tools that I could recommend, but one in particular is so also have another podcast that's completely AI. And so you plug in the words, and I've trained it on my voice, and it literally just does the podcast, and I've never said a word on it.
No way.
So
Wow.
it's kind of neat.
What's the name of that?
AI Hacks Podcast.
AI Hacks Podcast.
And I did it. I did it because I wanted to see if I could get it to rank. And it's not quite ranked yet, but people are downloading it.
That's very cool. Very cool. Question number 2. Do you have a hobby that might surprise even people who know you?
Yeah, probably Frisbee golf.
Ah, cool.
It's an interesting hobby.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
I've always wanted to try Frisbee golf. I have not yet.
It's fun.
It looks fun. It looks fun. Question number 3. Would you rather go into the past and meet your ancestors or go into the future and meet future generations of your family?
Future for sure.
Why do you say that? What drives that?
Because I feel like I could probably learn something from those people. Not that I couldn't learn anything from people in the past, but it feels like right now we're in a time that, I don't even know what's going on half the time. So I don't know. I've never been much of a history guy. And I don't know, the whole family ancestry.com. Like I would never even attempt to do that. Like I just don't care. Which sounds maybe kind of shitty, but I don't. Just not interested in it.
You're forward thinking. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all.
Exactly. No point looking back when you can look forward. Okay, next question. Are you a morning person or more of a night owl? I'm thinking you're probably both, but I'm curious.
I get up at 3 a.m. every morning.
That qualifies as a morning person. Well, that kind of qualifies as both.
What time do you go to bed at night?
Around 10.
Wow.
Good for you.
Okay, next question. No, this is you again, Ryan.
Yes, one of my favorite questions. Imagine you are trying to survive a zombie apocalypse. What one person do you definitely want to have on your team? Someone that'll have no problem disemboweling those zombies.
I would say Tim Ballard.
Okay.
You know Tim Ballard?
Yes. I think we've had that answer before, maybe.
Really? So Tim Ballard's the guy that created the
Operation Underground Railroad?
That's it.
Is that him? Yes.
Yep. I mean, he may not be the toughest dude on the planet, but like you've got to be mentally just a steel trap to do what that dude does.
Mm-hmm. Good answer.
Good stuff. Next to last question. How do you get your energy recharged? By being alone or by being with other people?
For sure alone. Hence the 3 a.m. Yep.
Yeah.
For sure.
Makes sense.
Final question. This one's a little more serious. What would you like to be remembered for?
I've been striving to be a better dad. And so I hope that I would be remembered as a good dad, because I haven't always been a good dad. Not necessarily a bad dad, just, I get caught up in work and I'm not present. And so I'm really trying to be more present in my kids' life. So that's what I would like to be remembered as. Very
cool. How many children do you have?
Just one.
Just one. Okay. That's cool. Very good. Well, Corey, thank you again. This has been great. For folks who may want to get in touch with you, what's the best, easiest, most convenient way for them to do that?
You can find me on just about all the socials, just CoreyBerrier. I spell it out because Berrier lots of times it's spelled with an A. Or anybody can email me at Corey@CoreyBerrier.com, just like I spelled it before.
Very cool. Well, so I need to kind of recap our challenge words. I know Ryan just worked his in there. Ryan, your word was?
My word was disemboweled, but I think I said disemboweling or something. I don't know.
I think it was pretty
does that count?
Close. I think it counts.
All right. All right. I was a little nervous. I messed it up.
Corey, did you get your word in?
Yep.
You did. Okay.
I said mount. Do you want me to tell you when I said it?
Oh, yeah. You did. Yes.
Yeah.
I
caught it.
Your word was armpit, and you worked it into talking about Mayberry RFD. I got so hung up on the whole Mayberry thing that I missed the word. Kudos to you. My word was puke, which I managed to work in as well. So that was fun. Well, this has been great, Corey. Thank you so much for your time. I enjoyed it. This will be a great episode.
My pleasure.
Well, and thank you to our audience for tuning into this episode of Construction Disruption with home services business coach Corey Berrier, the host of the Successful Life podcast. Please watch for future episodes of our show. We're always blessed with great guests. Don't forget to leave a review on Apple Podcasts or YouTube. Keep on challenging the status quo out there. Keep on pushing ahead for new things. And don't forget to have a positive impact on everyone you encounter. Encourage them, make them smile. Very simple, no cost things that we can do that change the world. So here we are saying goodbye. God bless and take care. This is Isaiah Industries signing off. Until the next episode of Construction Disruption.
This podcast is produced by Isaiah Industries, manufacturer of specialty metal roofing and other building products.